Yeah, a lot to keep up with. Hey, Everett.
Hey guys.
Appreciate your patience. Looking handsome as ever. You didn't put the glasses on. We were counting on that. It makes you look. I don't know.
Thanks. Well, this is funny. I'm at a hotel in Denver right now, and the sun just reflected off this building next to me. It's working out really well. You guys look great. Is there like officiating or announcing like a dodgeball tournament? Like what? Yeah, like a great booth.
Yeah, we're doing our own rendition of Best in Show. If you know the reference to the movie.
Yeah.
I think you can imagine what role I'm playing versus what role David's playing.
I love it. Yeah, color commentary.
Yeah, we got the bobbleheads even behind us. We didn't even mention that.
Nice.
Yeah, so some word association as well. But I know you are here with the. I guess is it a retreat with your team, or is it just a standard market visit?
Yeah, it's a corporate meetup. I mean, we've got I don't know 10 or 12 people that are new that never got a chance to meet each other, and so we just asked if people wanted to meet up, and so we're got the whole team. Most of the domestic team is in Denver right now, and we're at we're downtown, like rented out a hotel.
Very cool. And what's on the agenda besides the meet and greet? Like, are you going to talk about changing the world of multifamily?
Of course. Yeah. But truly, it's like, all of this talk about remote work, right? And then as soon as you get people together, it kind of the remote work is people are like, wow, this is way better to just meet up every now and then, right? Like fully remote is nuts. It's such a better opportunity to build trust and relationships when you're in person. So, yeah, there's definitely a strategy, but it's really just an opportunity to connect.
Yeah, well, cool. Appreciate you sharing that with us. We'll welcome Darlene. Hey, Darlene, how you doing?
Hey guys, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Are you also?
I'm happy to be in.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry again for we're still testing different platforms. It feels like every year a new one comes out, right? Trying to dethrone or cut into Zoom Share or Google Meets and et cetera, especially when it comes to these virtual conferences because you want them to be interactive. But Darlene, are you also in a hotel or?
Yes, I have donuts behind me. So I'm considering today official National Donut Day. That's my wallpaper.
Yeah. Well, if it is Donut Day, it's overlapping with Bike to Work Day, which is probably a good combination because there's a lot of calories.
Yes.
Therefore, it's a good complement to each other. Well, I think we have one more, David Stanford, that's going to be joining us from Real Foundations. But I know we are running a little bit behind, and Everett, I know you're on a tight schedule, so we will go ahead and jump into it. And when David can join us, certainly we will start incorporating him into the conversation. But I thought if you guys could just give us a brief self-intro, tell us a little bit about your companies, the roles you're playing, and then we'll obviously dovetail right into consumerization and what kind of role you guys are playing within that. But Everett, if you want to start things off for us.
Oh, no way. After you, Darlene.
What a gentleman. God, I have two sisters.
All right. Well, happy to be here, and thanks for the invite, guys. I'm Darlene Egan, and I'm with Marquette Management. We are out of Naperville, Illinois. We have been in business for over 35 years, and we just continue to grow. So we're at about 13,000, almost 14,000 units, and going through quite a bit of acquisitions lately, and we have a number of new developments in process. So yeah, I'm the director of, I'm the senior vice president, but I'm the director of marketing. So most of what I have to speak towards today is about marketing, and I love marketing. I always have. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in it, but I would say I'm passionate about it. So
very humble intro, because I think we've seen you to be quite the expert. It's a moving target for sure, and we'll get into that. Just all the different things now that are being kind of thrown on your plate to sort through, and some of that is, and this is teeing up Everett, but just all the new services, all the new amenities that continue to come into this industry. How do you build a strategy out of that? So Everett, you're causing all sorts of headaches for Darlene.
Good ones, though. Good ones, and I'll speak to that.
Yeah, trying to simplify it all, but that's great. And Darlene, I will sign up for that any day of the week. Where like enthusiasm beats talent, hustle beats talent. 10 times out of 10. And so yeah, I'm with you there. And well, it's a pleasure to be connected, and it's good to see the Digible team again. My name is Everett, Lynn, and I'm the CEO and founder of a multifamily amenities platform called Amenify. And to put it really simply is we'll help streamline, I guess, the problem of needing all these different services and staff that are visiting the community every day. So today, Amenify powers cleaning teams. So think like housekeeping and chores, dog walkers that are hired for the community. And then we'll also, this is really where we've been seeing the most growth, is we'll hire local chefs. I think like you heard a lot about ghost kitchens and commercial kitchens. And then we'll also hire delivery drivers. So we'll put together custom plans for a community. So it's, hey, lunch gets delivered at this time, dinner gets delivered at that time. Your dog walking team, here's a picture of them. This is when they'll be at your property. And then if there's ever any issue, and there always is an issue, it's talking about a human-related business, we have 7-day-a-week support. So residents or managers or staff can call in and say, hey, I'm locked out, or hey, which unit am I going to? Or I can't find the dog leash, just dealing with the real world quality control issues. And we recently raised financing, so we should be scaling in about 420,000 homes across 30 cities. So that's asset light, though. It's we're just doing the services and the support, and then we'll integrate in with the software and the operational team on site. So I think of us as like a bolt-in to like a Zego or a Mobile Doorman or Rise Buildings or whatever the resident engagement platform is. We just want to power the services and train the people that are coming on site.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the background from both of you. I'm going to dive in first with Everett here, and it's kind of just an extension on that introduction. But having founded Amenify, what was it that triggered you to do that? And I'm not going to tie this to one of the other questions I shared with you, but where you see Amenify as far as creating consumerization in a way, and I know you were saying, Reid, maybe you should start by defining that, so I haven't done that yet, versus capitalizing on it, because I'm super curious to know, and people ask us this, how are you developing your roadmap? Is it a few people in a room that start pontificating, often me and David, about what the industry needs or where we could build on some momentum or opportunities, or is it more based off of research? And so super interested to know with Amenify, first, what made you make the decision to found the company? And then as you start building, you mentioned the chefs. Is that something that came from resident research, or is it something where it's like, hey, this happens in other areas with business, and there's no reason that this shouldn't be happening and be easy for folks living in apartments?
Yeah, so there were a few questions in there. I think I got a sequence of answers that'll jive, and I'll try to do it quickly because I'd love to pull Darlene in. Where what I've learned, so my background was in real estate investment management, and I would go on site with our communities, and we would always try to, we talk to our residents, of course, but what residents want isn't really the hard part. I mean, of course, there's data and there's access to the home and there's density that you can layer in. So you think about that for services. But the secret sauce is really just, it's hard to deliver service and manage quality control at scale. So, I don't think that anybody in multifamily is ever surprised. Hey, I need help with cleaning. I need help with my pet care. I would yes, we all like food delivery. If there's private meal delivery, that's pretty awesome, right? I want that everywhere. So save 50% over Uber Eats. And then the fourth one we see a lot of requests for is handyman services or handy person services, whatever the terminology has gotten to. And so across the board, I'd say that the data that comes back from the residents is straightforward, right? Like almost every city aligns, like the demographics vary and you find the right price points and delivery mechanisms. But I think that the reason that I had to leave real estate to start the platform on the side is that most of real estate tech is like an iceberg. Like there's a little product that you see floating above the surface. It's like 10% of the offering. But 90% of the work is how we would integrate and support every real estate client. Like Darlene's overseeing marketing. Like there's people that report up to her that think about how to train the on-site teams. How does it integrate with the database? What's the resident experience in an app? How does support work? What's the leasing materials that the leasing team gets on site? And so it's really like to deliver quality, but then to think about how to support that across hundreds of thousands of units for all these different clients. That's really where more of the tech comes in, is because we have to help clients get to where they want to go. And so what I would put back is, like, I'm always curious to hear what any real estate manager is looking for with their residents and how they think about consumerization. Because Amenify is more of an outsourced research and development vehicle that'll help a client get where they want to go. So if they said, hey, I wanted to really increase my retention, or I wanted to jack up my NPS score right when a resident moves in, we're like, great, got it, on it. And we'll work with y'all to help you get there. Like standardizing welcome kits for the whole portfolio. And so hopefully that helps. I wasn't trying to dodge the question, but we are more of a consultant that rather than we just show up and say, hey, here's the product, take it or leave it. We're the experts, whatever. It's more of a, hey, here's what we've built. And then we go to the client and say, hey, how could we help you with this set of tools get to where you want to go?
No, it helps a ton. I'm not going to let you completely off, though, the hook on whether you feel like you're more creating or capitalizing, or are you saying somehow you're exempt from both of those, like you're not really, you don't fall in either one of those camps? Because I would imagine as you look ahead at the roadmap for Amenify, the vision, you're going to be adding, not probably subtracting, or maybe optimizing kind of those services that you offer. But is that back to kind of the research and how it's all coming to fruition? Are you?
I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
I understand. So I think of it this way. It's like right now, with what I see and I can't unsee. Like if I'm wrong, I think that means I'm crazy, unfortunately. But what I can't unsee anymore is that every property has incredible value that hasn't been unlocked yet. And I don't mean that in a predatory way. I just mean that, like, if we know a lot about our residents, we have great data right around who they are, what they want, how we can help them live a better life. If we have density, and every property manager has density, but then you plug into the Amenify network and you get even more density in the market. It's really exciting. And then the third piece is you have access to the home, right? And so if you think about, like, those three things are just sitting on the ground, unused, and from my vantage point, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of tools to activate it, right? You need support, you need digital integration, you need a infrastructure for a service team, because you need people going to and from the building. And so directionally, the way we pick our products and our services is, one, what's good for the resident, two, what's good for the manager, three, where do we have an unfair advantage? Like, Amenify doesn't care about renters insurance, not because I don't think residents don't want it, but Amenify doesn't have anything unique to say about renters insurance. There's companies that are way better than us at that. Where we focus, like, on that unique advantage, is think about moving human beings that are qualified, trained, bonded, insured around a local ecosystem, and then what services are they doing, and then what products are they carrying in, like physical products. Is that dog food? Is that a non-alcoholic beverage? Sponsorship, stuff like that. So, like, as we keep layering in services, it needs to overlap with those circles, and hopefully that is enough of like a North Star to help shape how we think about it.
Yeah, no, super helpful. More of a conduit facilitator than necessarily sitting on more directly one side or the other of the question. So I'm going to let David thanks for jumping in. Sorry for the hiccup and getting you started, but certainly glad to have you here, because I know you're going to offer some great perspective, and you probably appreciate, I think, if you caught it in the chat, there was already mention of single family and how this, how we view that versus multifamily. But if you could just give us a quick self-intro about yourself, Real Foundations, a little background, and then we'll let you and Darlene maybe pick up a little bit off of what Everett started there.
Okay. So, yeah, I got my technology sorted. So David Stanford, founder of Real Foundations. I've been at this for 30 plus years. Real Foundations management consulting, managed service provider in the real estate industry, and done a lot of work across all forms of residential for sale housing, multifamily for rent, and then last 10 or 12 years, single family for rent. We've got about 400 people scattered around the country and the world. So I got in just a little bit late, so I'm not sure what the conversation thread was, but I will be happy to jump in and pick up on it.
Yeah, no problem. Well, appreciate that. Darlene, I will let you, I guess, first react to some of what Everett said. Obviously, a lot of it was kind of about their company and where they fit, but your thoughts just on, well, yeah, I guess his company and where you see things headed as far as making things easier, for residents, but also for these service providers to kind of get connected. And technology and what Everett's company is doing seems to be, a big opportunity, a big part of it. But what are your thoughts there, Darlene?
Yeah, so I'm a huge proponent of consumerization, and I feel like our staffs are so stretched on site, and they have so much to do with so much technology and different softwares and so many different dashboards that they're going through throughout the day, that where they really want to spend their time is with the resident engagement and the resident services, but they don't have the time to do it. So having companies like Amenify or Stratton Amenities or Flamingo or the Lisa app or any type of a service like that is our partner in satisfying the needs of our residents and assuring that they're happy, they're content, they're what they thought that they were going to get at our communities, which are meeting their needs and their wants and their beliefs. They're getting all those things. And plus the other thing is we're always looking for things that set us aside from other companies, because, and I wanted to get to this in the question about what's so challenging and rewarding about I can't even say it, consumerization is there's so many tools out there that are provided to us with resident services, resident engagement, tech, trending, AIs, bots, and so many different things that we are utilizing. But the challenging thing about it is that they change like almost daily. So there's a new one that's coming on board. There's a new one that's doing something just as good or better or even not as good as the company that just is the last company. So there's so many different tools out there that we're looking at that it's challenging, but like I mentioned earlier, it's so rewarding that we can partner with these agencies, with these third-party companies to not only satisfy our needs and streamline our efficiencies on site, but that we have companies like this that assist us as owners, as managers, but assist our residents in having a tremendous and extraordinary lifestyle while they're there. So I commend Amenify in what they are doing. And I think that probably for you, Everett, the challenge is staying ahead of everybody else in your realm of your business. So maybe you can speak to that, or David. I'm curious.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you something, and I think if we go super big picture, right? Imagine there's like a little spaceship looking down at planet Earth, decides to look in at the multifamily industry, and like, this is really interesting that like there's all of these companies that service this fragmented industry, right? Mm-hmm. And I read a lot of sci-fi, so, and you think about like cause and effect. Like really what these companies are doing is saying, hey, because a property of a place where people live, there's so many dimensions of what that building has to do, right? There's basic infrastructure, right? Like who built the building, who keeps the building standing, right? And then there's like, is there water? Is there electricity? Does it have Wi-Fi, right? I think like by the way, Wi-Fi, I think is in the category of like running water today. And so then like you start, it's.
You froze.
Yeah.
What we see is just that.
There we go.
Okay. Well, y'all are still looking for me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, man, that's tough. Making impassioned speech. And I'm like,
no.
So,
you didn't invest in the
okay.
$50 no Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So here's, if you have a multifamily building, you need Wi-Fi. So, like my observation, or like what I think is causing this, is just that for a real estate company, what I'm hoping to see more out of the industry, and this is kind of like go back to you, Darlene, or maybe pull in David, is how far away are we from having a real estate industry that starts to think about its offering to the resident as a product, and having a chief product officer that oversees all the elements of a resident experience, meaning,
oh man,
managing the property anymore. Your job is not to pay the HVAC bills. I mean, yeah, that's part of the job, but I don't think that's what the job is. And so I think that like the gap that we see is just that like the management companies themselves, I think, need to have a component inside that say, hey, the resident comes first, because if the resident's happy, everything else takes care of itself, right? Rent goes up, income goes up, and then we can outperform our competition, right? Yeah. And so that, like, my question is, how far away are, like, that's the problem, right? Like, until we have, like, if we go into a client and there's 8 cooks in the kitchen, and it's like one person's like, I want the rent to go up, and one person says, well, I want a resident to be happy. I need to make $1 every time the resident goes in and out of the door, and I'm going to charge them for it, nickel and dime, right? And like all of a sudden, you just have too many competing interests. So my question is the industry changing? Is it just the status quo? Will it always be that way? And that's not in my self-interest, right? I'm just curious how you view the industry and if it is evolving.
Yeah. Well, if it's okay, Darlene, I'm going to let David. Yeah, I'm going to let David jump in on that one.
Absolutely.
Because I think it is super interesting, like from an organizational design. And you guys, clearly that's one of your sweet spots, I think, Dave, fair to say, as far as when you guys are advising and counseling people, it's one of the first things that you probably approach or address is, are you set up, from, again, organizationally, like appropriately to tackle multifamily right now? So what are your thoughts on all this?
Right. I think, to use the sports analogy, probably in spring training, probably not even in the early innings yet, but there is a very large owner-operator based out of Atlanta who 3 years ago named a chief experience officer.
Yeah, Mike Gomes.
Right. So we have arrived in some respect, but it is, it's very early. And, it's interesting because we straddle for sale housing, single families, kind of scattered site, early days, and then in multifamily. The SFR folks had to innovate just to survive and have a business. Mm-hmm. And, the organization construct from a single family product experience standpoint has always been centralized, and then communicated somewhat consistently across the portfolio. And multifamily, a lot of the site level sort of marketing decisions have always been sort of pushed towards the site, and now we see that changing, where there's more structure going to be being added, and thought from the C-suite to make intentional decisions in guiding the marketing message, guiding the customer experience, guiding the product launches. Because, as she said, the technology is changing so fast, you're getting hit with multiple products. Like, how can you all make sense of them or figure out what to do first, second, or third? And traditionally, interestingly, a lot of the very close customer engagement technology offerings were not really the focus of the technology team. Technology team was focused with the business, the operating, the financials, the reporting, the keeping the lights on. So this is also a transition from a technology support standpoint. And I think there's still quite a bit of underinvestment in the technology supporting function for front-facing operations. There's deferred investment there.
Definitely. Darlene, anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add that it's funny. One of the things that I always say is that there were 10 years ago, IT was it, right? IT was everything. Everything was technology, communication technology. And literally over the last 10 years, primarily the last 5, but super last few years because of COVID, marketing technology is front facing, and it should be. It absolutely should be. Yeah. And there's so much that we have to do with the resident, with the prospect, with the functions, with the events. There's so much coordination that comes into play, and like I mentioned earlier, there's so many tools and dashboards and so many operational things that we're doing that we have to have somebody leading that charge, like a chief experience officer that David mentions. Maybe it doesn't have to be that grand because I'm sure this person is amazing. but the point here is that marketing technology has got to be in the front face. It just has to be, and sometimes it has to be in a more organizational and structured way, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's great. So one of my biggest questions for all three of you, because you're going to come at it different ways, but I think we'll drive some really good dialogue, is with all the technology hitting, I've been referring to it as a tsunami for a few years, multifamily, and consumerization really driving most of it. How then do you quantify, quantify, and determine whether you're making the right investments? Because you bring on Amenify, and there's a lot of variables before Everett, let's say his services or technology comes into the picture that you're already like trying to, I guess, distinguish between and really evaluate. He mentioned NPS. I hit him hard. We had him on the podcast just about this. Like, how then do you know that by bringing Amenify on, it was an investment worth making? And a lot, I think, of technology providers, for better or worse, we're put in a position where we have to come maybe with a more affordable cost model. I'll say our lower cost point than we really actually believe is right. But it's the only way to even kind of get started. So I guess I'm throwing that jab in a way, but if you guys could address how you then, with all that's coming to you, make decisions on what to pursue, and then how do you ultimately evaluate those? Is it through rent rates? I mean, there's a lot of obvious ones. Is it retention? But I'm gonna again qualify. You have so many other things that are contributing to that. So that's what, if I were in any of your shoes, that would be one of the hardest things for me. If I'm Amenify trying to kind of set expectations, establish KPIs, and say, here's how you should really evaluate, our ROI. And if I'm Darlene, I'm like, okay, I got 80 new things now that I got to market, and I'm trying to figure out which one to prioritize and whether it was really worth it, for our organization, our properties. And then if I'm David, obviously you got to be hitting that hard when you're having conversations. It's like, where do we park our money right now with all this new tech coming our way? So whoever wants to start, but I think, again, you guys are all going to have kind of pretty perspectives on that one.
Well, I'll start. So, I think where we see sort of our clients really starting with is what is going to move the needle, NOI. Like if you can wrap everything around NOI and create a program that has a significant impact to that, it's measurable, then that's a great framework for saying, is something going to be positive NOI or basically neutral or possibly even negative. So it's hard to be against NOI. I think Net Promoter Score, we'll let Everett talk about that. That's proven now in the market. UDR has been pretty public in kind of what they've said about that. we're still in the early innings of this consumerization bit, which has been accelerated by COVID. So retention or duration of stay is a little artificially good right now because there's not as much turnover. But I think that's certainly something that gets measured. The other thing is wallet share, because there's a lot of purchases that happen inside of a home, outside of the operator, and we've seen a lot of adoption and sign up pretty happily sign up of Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi is just, as Everett said, just like water. People need it. All income levels, all demographics. It's something that is required, and the take-up rate on that is great, and that enables other wallet share. The other thing that doesn't get mentioned a whole lot, because a lot of people are focused on rent growth, and that's not going to continue forever, is containing or maintaining or slowing the rate of expense growth. That's something that a lot of these technologies can have a big impact on. If you read in the details of a lot of UDR's public filings, you'll see a lot about that. And then we're seeing a lot of clients now having a much larger and more laser focus on renewal numbers, renewal growth, versus the new lease count. From a technology standpoint, that's kind of been not as much of a focus over the last several years with all of the prop tech, and has often been overlooked. So that's where I would start. And if you add up all of that, there are public examples out there of multiple 100 basis points of NOI growth, and that's very hard to argue with. But a lot of this starts with basic enabling technology at the property.
Yeah. Well, you want to pick that one up, Everett, and then we'll let Darlene weigh in?
Sure. I'll agree with everything that was said. I can share that in practice, though, very few people arrive to a meeting with me with 7 KPIs that he just mentioned, broken out. This is the start date. We held these constants, ceteris paribus, all things held equal. Here was the bump, right? No, nobody does that. No one could. And if somebody tried to do that, I'd be like, you're crazy. No way, right? So like everybody talks about it directionally. So yes, of course we talk about that. I would say that the only KPI that I care a lot about that I didn't hear in there is the on-site team happy? Because more often than not, after a pilot, everybody talks about metrics. We refer back to the pitch deck, like how are we doing all those KPIs? But that person is busy. And the person in charge, she picks up the phone. She's like, I'm calling the on-site manager, wait right there. And she like looks me in the eyes, calls a few on-site managers, and it's like Gladiator. If you saw that movie, where they're like, I like it, I don't like it. Yeah. And if you get 3 thumbs up, they move forward. And because at the end of the day, like I think the well-run businesses empower the on-site teams to have a say in it. And so I think that if we're really helping the leasing teams, but hey, like live here, we have private staff. If we're really helping the on-site managers because we're taking work off their plate with key releases and managing vendors, and people say, hey, I don't know what to do. Hey, call the Amenify concierge. They'll figure it out. That out in the field works well. If this was a classroom and we were talking academically about prop tech, I think that I wish everybody would look at the data points and NPS scores. But in a people-driven industry, a lot of people trust their team and just say, hey, are y'all happy? And then that's almost the deciding factor.
Is that the right approach, though? And I don't mean to discount or discredit, the feedback, coming the 3 thumbs up or down, because they are closer to it than anybody else. But there's a lot that they aren't aware of, whether it's, I'll say bigger picture or the numbers. And so if you take that approach, it seems to me that you could get yourself into trouble. But that's just a quick reaction, Everett. Darlene, how?
Oh, I mean, listen, I wish I'm running down the hallway carrying a stack of papers. I can't wait to show off all the data. And then I get to the room, I'm like, all right, we'll start on slide 17 and then we're going to jump to slide 74. You're going to love this. And they're like, no, stop. And they pick up the phone and they call somebody. You know what I mean? So I hope the industry gets to the point where they have the time and the inclination to do that with all these different partners, because we measure it and that's how it drives our business. I've just found that I'm just trying to be pragmatic here for the group. I figured I'd throw out one more item.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Well, I'm kind of stuck in the middle. So I totally believe the people side of it. We have to make sure our people are happy because they're what's making our residents happy, and that's where our income's coming from. But on the other side, we have to make our ownership groups happy too. So, and they're KPI driven, they're results driven, they're NPS driven. So we have to do both. We have to show the results to both. But to get to your first question, Reid, I think what drives us to certain tools or to maintain certain tools is two things. One, market conditions, and two, what the consumer wants, needs, and what their beliefs are. Those are the two important pieces to that puzzle in determining where we go from here. So during COVID, we all had to pivot, right? And pivot quickly. So self-guided tours were needed, virtual tours were needed, 360 tours were needed. We had so much technology being thrown at us, and we were swallowing all of it because we were drowning. So I think that it's just so important that we look at the market, we look at the consumer, and from the consumer, we can kind of break that down to the demographics, right? An A-class property is going to be different than a C-class property. A new lease-up development is going to be different than a stabilized property. So what demographic in that particular market or that particular development that we're building or stabilized acquisition that we're now taking on, what is the needs of that consumer and what is that market saying? Because we're in 7 states now. So every demographic, every market is different. But my point is that we have to look at where I am in the middle and where you both are with the people and the statistics to prove it up. So it all kind of comes together. That's why the three of us in our world of real estate, along with you Digible people that we love, we have to have great partnerships. And that's where things last. If we are getting the results and we have those great relationships and our residents are happy, our employees are happy, and our ownership groups are happy, sweetness. Like we have our ROI right there.
Yeah, that's great. I think David's written 17 questions since you guys started on my left here, and I want to let him get to at least a couple of those. So I'll let him jump in, but one thing I don't want to, I guess, overlook or not get a chance to talk about is COVID. David, you mentioned it. Darlene, you mentioned it. I know Everett certainly has opinions, and you and I talked, Everett, on the podcast with David about how it affected Amenify directly, and now how you guys are coming out of it, so to speak. But David, I'll turn it over to you. But COVID, and then also financial implications of consumerization is what I'm super interested to hear. In particular, maybe David, from you, and to the extent Everett and Darlene can share with us. But what does that all mean? Does it mean more NOI? Does it mean less? Because very simply put, it's like, well, with all this extra stuff that you guys, and it's needed to compete, right? We can't get away with what we got away with 10 years ago. So is it then inevitably NOI has gone down? But if your rate goes up in proportion, then it shouldn't, right? But then rents can't go up forever, as David said. So super fascinated to hear financial implications and COVID impact. But I'm going to let David squeeze in a couple questions here.
This David or
this
that David?
you?
Oh, okay. Well, I actually have one for that, David. I'll go there first since, whatever. But I'm wondering, like you mentioned that, you mentioned share of wallet. So I guess I'm going to hit you and Everett. And I really like share of wallet. But then there are companies like Airbnb that have tried that too, where they started and they had like all these packages around travel and other experiences. But then Airbnb decided to pull back and say, you know what, we really need to focus in on just, what their core business was essentially. But then there are other companies, David, like Disney and Apple and Uber that have been super successful with getting more share of wallet. So I'm just wondering, like from your point of view, how you think about share of wallet when it comes to apartments and where they should consider expanding, what they're capturing with the wallet versus where they should, just stay out of so they don't end up having an Airbnb situation.
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned share of wallet and one thing that's been accomplished. There's lots of things that have been tried and not been accomplished. And some of those energy and telco and cable and stuff like that are wildly wild and woolly. But it's a dangerous competition, I think. And it's not for the meek of heart. The Wi-Fi thing, it appears that it's being proven out, and that people will pay up for now for this as a basic utility, and that it can be provided. The rest of like getting other wallet share, I think we're even before spring training, and I don't have a sort of a big opinion. We're not seeing a lot of folks really trying to focus in on that. But the one thing that does work, that is proven to date, is getting good, stable dial tone Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Everett, like with you guys have gone through a lot of different types of, vendors that you provide. And I think a lot of that's dependent on the market. But if you'd give a quick overview of how Amenify approaches this to when it regards to share wallet, and if you want to do like a quick plug about how, like what kind of property something like Amenify works well for versus where it doesn't work well, then have at it.
Sure. Well, we've got, I don't know, hundreds of Class A, hundreds of Class B plus, but I want Amenify to be a platform for all types of communities. I just think of it directionally, meaning with the advent of the smartphone and the internet, people price shop, right? Even my friends that hate Uber for whatever personal reason, if Lyft is surging in price, they're like, all right, damn it, I'm going to download Uber and I'll just check the price really quick, right? Like we're just trained this way, like supercomputers, right? Like way more advanced than what we landed on the moon with in our phone, in our pocket. And so we talk about share of wallet, talk about what you can sell to a consumer, what they'll pay for, what like the manager of the building can make money off of. I think you have to be very careful because from my seat, I think that we have a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of our assets and provide something that the resident chooses to purchase as opposed to holding them hostage, right? Like in the worst examples I've seen people like have a business center and they charge like $1 per page to print or something. And I'm like, I get it, right? But you're saying such a strong statement that you're just like, hey, like I've devalued the experience to the point that I'm just trying to like nickel and dime everything. Like a coin operated electricity flow to your apartment building isn't going to fly, right? And so I don't want to overstep, and because there's some communities where there's different rev share opportunities that work, right? I'm more in the camp of I think that if you invest in the relationship, you'll see that in payback in the form of retention. But I get it, right? Like there's people who have been doing this for a lot longer than I have. They're like, hey, no, listen, like we're going to make money on this, and I have enough experience and data to prove that it works. So I don't want to overstep, right? But I can just share that from what we've seen, putting services and products in the home, if you can compete if you choose the battleground that you have an advantage in. For example, if a cleaning team cleans 10 apartment homes in the same day, the price goes way down, but the quality is still good, right? So that's an obvious win-win where you just needed a little bit of curating and stewardship to shape the offering, because then residents want to do it. We have properties where we're sold out and residents saying, hey, hire more cleaners. That's where we want to go after share of wallet. And so jumping ahead another year or two, what I would want to do is Amenify knocks on the door of a real estate manager and say, hey, which one of your vacant units am I going to roll in this cart that's got same day essential sundries? Think of like a company like GoPuff if you're on the East Coast. And it's like based on the data profile of your residents, I know they're going to want this suite of products. And I've got 3 service professionals that are visiting at these 3 times today. And based on what your residents want, like same hour delivery, I'll be able to, they will want to choose this product, and we can start selling them more and more consumer products, right? You got 100 dogs in your portfolio, you should be selling dog food. Why? Because we could put the dog food right next door and it's an e-commerce sale and we circumvent zoning laws, permitting laws. And I've got the staff and the data and the infrastructure to support all of that. Right, I got a central location down the street in a Menify warehouse. We do that now. We have a partnership with Anheuser-Busch where we've been able to monetize non-alc beverages. And that's just directional. I think that there's his and hers grooming kits. I think that there's razor blades. I think that there's beauty products. I think there's so many things we could sell on site because we have the convenience economy. And so, like, to make this land, right, bring the plane down, Everett. To make it land, I think that we always, if we're getting consumer chose to do so, not because they were forced to do so. Does that make sense? Because we view the consumer, regardless of the demographic, as getting smarter and smarter.
Right.
Yep. I know you have to jet here in just a second. So two things from me, and maybe Reid will let you go. But one is there an opportunity for a Minify, or as you see it, like property management, to get involved earlier with share of wallet, or at least in the life cycle? And I think of easy things like moving. So it's just like you sign up for a lease. It's like, why not say like, great, we have a preferred moving company, and guess what? Blah, blah, blah. They're awesome and yada, yada. Or like even like home decoration or design. It's like, hey, I know you loved our staged unit. We have so-and-so company that can come in and do this for you. And it's 30%, whatever, like off. So I'm just wondering, like, is that an opportunity where, a Minify could step in earlier, or where maybe the property management company should be thinking about it when it comes to the share wallet conversation?
Yeah. So here's the analog that I would bring up back to you. Like, I don't know what airline you fly, right? Like maybe it's United out of Denver, maybe like Delta, right? But regardless of what airline you book with, normally at the end of the flight, you're going somewhere, they try to sell you a rental car, right?
Every time.
Right? And how, like, raise your hand here if you bought one of those rental cars that United marketed to you. When was the last time? Like, I love my Aunt Catherine, who she doesn't care. She's just like, she'll click on something, whatever. Even she's like, no way. Like, I'm not going to buy that. Like, you think I'm a dummy? You think I'm not going to go shop? Like, I know where I'm going to rent my car because I'm going to go find a platform on my supercomputer phone that my nephew taught me how to use. No big deal. I got it. And so, like, I think that I'm reticent to say that you can just capture a consumer by placing a coupon in front of them at the right time. I think that there's another step that the consumer wants now, which is the quality control, the interconnectedness. Like, we said no to a partnership with WAG and Rover because we couldn't API in and control quality. So if the resident had a bad experience, we didn't know about it. And then if we didn't know about it, there's no way that WAG was going to go out of their way to tell the property manager that they had a bad experience. So I think that we've now come full circle that if you're going to put a service in front of a user, you have to be there to support the service. And so, yes, of course, we love moving, right? We have APIs with a company called Moved that Adam Pittenger, his company that he started, we love them. So I'm trying to answer your question directionally, but like, if you just followed the consumer through their day when they move in and you just looked for like this right time to like pop a coupon in front of them, it doesn't work. Yeah. You really have to offer something unique. And I think that when I say that, I'm really saying that, like, controllable value, quantifiable value, and then integrated support. So that, like, the reason we give residents $50 when they move in and they can spend it on all these different services is because we will only do a service where we, like, the person's showing up in an Amenify uniform, because then we can vouch for quality. And then if the resident's like, hey, that moving company guy just put a cigarette out on my arm when he was like, all right, well, okay, we're on it, right? Like, there's just so much that happens in the real world with services that we're reluctant to just bounce people off the coupon land and then have that person pay us $20 per sign up, because you've now externalized a critical part of your experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think it's like any partnership. Digible can't just partner with any marketing tech company because for no reason, because then it's going to feel like we're inundating Darlene with whatever offers, and that's a poor experience. I think back to what Stanford said earlier, you have to think about the entire customer experience and do something different. You don't just start throwing the coupon book. But I do think that there's opportunity there. So before you jet, when's Amenity or Amenify a great fit for a property?
If there are renters that want a lifestyle, right? And or if you had a property where you wish you had staff services, but you didn't want to spend $10,000 a month, right? You want to spend a couple $100s a month. But our demographics right now, like it's probably rent per square foot that's north of $1.75 per unit per month, and then any city with a football team, right? That's like we're there or almost there, and I would just say that we because of the value spectrum, like right now, yeah, our private kitchens deliver high-end food to people that are more often than not white-collar professionals. Maybe they're working from home, right? Maybe when they're working at the office, we'll do dinner delivery. But a year from today, I want Amenify to be able to be bringing healthy, nutritious meals to communities where there's maybe a single parent that's struggling to provide a good option for their kids, right? That's like, it's the same power of the network. Like we're going to cook 100 meals that morning, and we can deliver them to 6 different locations. It's like, boom, there's awesome savings for the family. So today, Class A, B+ for sure. But I would hate to limit what we're passionate about and why the team's all here in Denver today, because we want to help every community of any demographic.
Great.
Well, thanks, Everett. I know you have a great answer to this one, but I think you may have to jump, and I definitely want to give David.
He's trying to bait me. He's trying to hook me. I'm late. I'm so late. My team is all downstairs. But okay. But before I go, though, Darlene, it was so nice to be introduced. I like the donuts on the back wall. I think it looks great. And then David Stanford, Mr. Stanford, it's a pleasure to be introduced. And Reid, other David. Thanks, guys. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
Everett. All right. Yep. See y'all later.
Yep. So
I do have one for Darlene, if you don't mind, though.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Darlene,
this never happens between the two of us.
Hey, Reid.
Yeah.
Did he just call me old?
Mister?
I think that was just all about respect. I'll save him from that one. Just Mr. Stanford.
Just to make sure I get
Sir Stanford.
Question to everybody. Darlene, and I'm sure, David, you might add something to this, but I'm wondering at your properties, or maybe not even your properties yet, but just from all the products and services that you see around, what's a no-brainer product for a property? Like when you guys come in and take a property, what is something that you're like, we got a position budget for whatever, right? So like no property these days would say, hey, we shouldn't have a website. So automatically there's budget for that, right? And I know some companies that are like, we need chat bot of choice, immediately must put that on. But when it comes to this topic around consumerization, is there something that you see as like, now you don't have to fight for it, or that if you had your way, you wouldn't fight for it? You'd be like, this is a no-brainer.
Are you finding a way to avoid the word table stakes?
No, I just don't you say that word.
I love that. Well, I always feel it's better to start out with a budget with what you want, but that's not always realistic. So we're working most of the time off of pro formas, and we have a chunk budget that we have to work with in regards to marketing. But I would say that we usually start out with definitely 100% a very, very good website and a very, very good company or companies that generate traffic straight to our website. So basically an SEM program and a strong SEO presence. And we usually go with 1 or 2 ILSs. And again, ILSs are, some properties could have 3 ILSs because it's their market, it's their demographics. Others can live off of just ads and SEO. So SEO and SEM going straight to the website. Resident retention has to be healthy in that budget, because our company believes in extraordinary customer service and experience and experiential marketing. So it's very, very important that we have funds to be able to produce that. And then some properties even have customer or resident satisfaction architects on their property that coordinate these events, and that's a cost. But we look at that cost in return based on our retention and our ability to create value, and our ability, because we're creating value, to raise rents higher. So I guess if I'm looking at everything that I would want to put in, there would be quite a bit more chat. And when I speak of websites, I do speak of chatbots on websites. Anything that's moving that journey of that prospect through that cycle to a contact form, or to a keeping them on the website, less time on having a bounce rate and going through more pages, so that it's an engaging website that moves them to a contact page or a contact form, or to lease online. So that to us is extremely valuable and less expensive. So we have money to put into our resident satisfaction, resident retention budget. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, well, it sounds like definitely a lot of the front end, and now this the other question, which I was going to hit Reid with, but David, with a lot of times what we've seen is when Reid talks about the structure of the property management company, it's almost like there are these silos where you'll have like marketing on the front end, and Darlene, this is just the way it is. Like you have marketing, and then operations is like, once you give me the lead, back out. I don't want you anymore. Like we do things our way. Then you have operations, and then when it comes to renewal, sometimes that also feels separated. Many other businesses do a lot, as you were saying about retention, Darlene, like where they're focused on that entire customer life cycle, the whole experience thing that you're talking about, David, and their marketing is involved through the entire journey. But in apartments, it tends to be more segmented. So I'm just wondering what companies can do to take one step forward to breaking down those lines, so that as a consumer, if I go in, I don't get a different experience the first time when I'm visiting the website before I've talked to somebody, then I get on the phone with somebody, and then like the year I live there or more feels different. Like all of those to me, like in my personal experience, has felt very different, like through my journey. So David, what is something or some things people can do to take a small step to making that more smooth?
I'll answer that, but I want to go back to the previous question.
Oh, sure.
On like what should somebody consider? I think one of the findings that we have seen is in water leak detection. So there's a lot of angst about trying to pay for enabling technology at a unit level. And we have found out, so water is the largest claim history. It's pretty pervasive. It can cause all kinds of troubles if not caught quickly. And we have had early conversations about this. They're like, the client's like, I don't really buy that. Well, after you get through the conversation, you talk to the insurance company. We've talked to several insurance companies, large insurance brokers. If there is a way to prevent claims, then that one thing will switch an executive to say, I'm not sure about this, to how fast can this be done? Once you get to that point, there's a bigger belief in the enabling technology. Now you've got something that enables a unit, enables all kinds of other opportunities to engage with prospects and residents or in a deeper, richer experience. And we found that is, the thing that can make or break and sort of speed up all of the enablement of technology very, very quickly at the C-suite. The insurance companies say the same thing. I've talked with them. They're on board. They want that to happen as well. So enough about that. Your other question about what can we do from a kind of to smooth out, Reid, I think it was for Dave, to smooth out the silos.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think, probably taking a page from the single family rental institutional industry. Again, because of the structure, there are no on-site managers. So because of that, we have to have sort of leadership across the portfolio, structure across the portfolio, an organization to cross every home. And those things are, those functions are more centrally located. They talk to each other. There's less history of having a lot of that front end sort of marketing tactics handled at the site. And we're seeing people start to kind of migrate towards that model. And then have now, with the acceleration of the consumer being in charge, then that accelerated by COVID by 10 years. The C-suite is now paying more attention to this than I've ever seen in my history in 30 years in multifamily. And I think that's going to enable a lot more decisions across the board. Will help answer those 7 metrics from a pure business standpoint. And the other interesting thing that we get asked questions, it's hard to answer because nobody holds on to these properties forever. Very few people do. So there's always an exit strategy, right? And Darlene, you probably have faced it. It's like, does this make it more attractive on exit? How can you quantify that? What does this look like the time this trades?
Which gets into the financial implications, which I'm dying to ask about, but I also know we're kind of at time. So every time, at least I talk to David, and I know the other David talks to David, we end up wanting to talk for 3 more hours. And Darlene, always appreciate your perspective. I am going to squeeze in this last one, and I don't know if I'll be interested in, well, I wouldn't be asking if I wasn't, how both of you answer this, but you mentioned COVID accelerating things by 10 years, and you used this great analogy of we're in spring training, maybe the early innings on this whole thing with consumerization. So my question is, what does the 9th inning look like, and how fast are we going to get there? So a lot has changed in the last year and a half as a result of COVID. And I think most in multifamily would say for the better, as far as how people are operating, thinking about things, and how that all connects to consumerization. But what do you think the 9th inning looks like? David, I'll start with you. And then are we talking like on a bell curve? That's where I went with you guys, but now I'm using baseball, that it's going to take another 10 years to get to the mid innings? Or do you think things are now potentially like going to start moving a lot faster for this industry as far as closing the gap?
If you guys can't tell, Reid's team COVID. He'd like another 2 or 3 lockdowns to happen.
Well, if I really knew the answer, I'd have a unicorn sticking on my head. Right. I started talking about this thing called the airplane test in 2014. I was behind Brad Inman. He called it the latte vision. It's pretty simple. I want to be able to buy a place to live on a weak internet connection. Like I can buy anything on Amazon, one transaction. That exists today, barely, but it does exist. It exists more in the single-family rental world because of necessity. I think that's probably a middle innings thing, but once you get there, we have a lot of trained consumers that need that kind of experience. I was out at a IMN event last week in Vegas, and on a panel with the president of Mark Taylor Homes. One of the things that he mentioned is, and they have probably like it's probably similar to Darlene's portfolio, very high end, just in the Phoenix Central Valley area, 20,000 units right out there. They used to think they needed a high touch model, and they said resoundingly, their consumers are telling them, I don't want to talk to you at all. I want you to make it easy for me to live with you. And that's what I want. And I'm not going to repeat the statistics because nobody will believe me. It was astounding what they reported. And it goes against the grain of everything that we've been taught the last 30 years. And there's still a lot of deeply held belief that we have to do it this old way. But the consumers, the buyers, are telling us that's not true.
Yeah. Well, Darlene, why don't you wrap it up for us here? What are your thoughts on where we sit on this whole kind of either baseball game or bell curve with consumerization and
well, I think that I think our primal instincts will always be there. So the need to have engagement, the need to have things to do, work and play, sleep and eat, and all that whole lifestyle isn't going to change. It's all going to be there always. And if we have consumerization that fulfills that piece of the primal instinct, then that's great. But I also feel that moving into the future, that things are going to be even bigger and better and probably be more techy than they are today. I mean, I've read articles on the retail companies are doing pop-ups. We may start doing pop-ups at our clubhouses when prospects come in, getting them more engaged, having them have a taste of what life at XYZ property really feels like. I think it might be more robotic. I think it'll be more hologramish. I mean, I just think, I really do think that there's going to be more and more companies developing things that's developing software or tools or AIs that prop tech that satisfy a number of our demographics, especially the ones that are going to be renters for the next 10 to 20 years. So our Z generation, we have to look at them differently than we do our baby boomer demographic right now, and then everyone in between. So there's two others in between. So we have to look at it all differently, and we have to be prepared for it. But I do feel that those natural instincts are not going to go away. Those are the things that are going to drive us to communities that nurture us, that build trust with us. That's why, because that one question about changing things in the middle of the lease is not good, because the renter of today is where they rent is built on trust. The person that rents to them and the place that takes care of them. They look at because of COVID, they look at our homes, our lifestyle in our homes at our properties as a safe haven. It's safe. It's a place that I can go to, and I know that I'm going to be okay. And I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon. So there's a lot to consider. There's a lot that's going to happen. I don't have the crystal ball. I wish I did. I probably even won't be around in 10 years to see what happens, but I will have grandchildren that I can kind of look back on. So that's my story.
Yeah, no.
I would add two things to this. Number one, just what the ninth inning looks like. I think it looks like portfolios of workforce housing, C-class housing, are running at north of 70% NOI margin.
Yes.
That's a kind of a litmus test thing. The other thing in the ninth inning, which might be going into extra innings, is we have really used all of this tool and capability to address the affordable housing shortage.
Yes.
Because that is not being addressed currently satisfactorily, and it's not getting better. And there are ways to leverage technology and automation to make a living more affordable, but that's going to take a lot of work. And I think, in sort of bringing the closer in, that would be the closing to have addressed and made a big dent in the affordable housing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much. Sorry for the slow start, but I think obviously there was some great perspective shared today. And if folks haven't, or they came in late, definitely try to connect with David Stanford, not Staley. You guys must have connected with him. He's got great, foresight, but also experience on both sides, multifamily and single family, that we didn't get as much into, that I think is super pertinent for this conversation. It's really interesting. And then Darlene, obviously we're super grateful to be partners with you and Marquette, and have learned a lot along the way, and really appreciate the partnership and the marketing perspective on this. But thanks so much, and we hope to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Bye, everybody.
Enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, it was great. Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
See ya.
Steve, we'll do one more 60-second break, and then we'll be right back with our next session on